Are you ready to unlock the secrets of brand innovation? Here you'll discover unexpected ways to make your brand soar in value. Get ready for inspiring stories, actionable tips, and insights you'll need to build your brand and learn an entirely new way to fly. This is the Hummingbird Effect. And now your host, Wendy Coulter.
Hi, I'm Wendy Coulter, and I help CEOs and marketing leaders unlock the hidden power of their brands. For years, business leaders have focused on marketing tactics, but what truly matters is building a strong brand. Think of it like the Hummingbird Effect. Small innovations in branding can lead to surprisingly big results in unexpected areas, like increased valuation, stronger culture, and a marketing message that resonates. Today, I have with me Hannah Jernigan. She's my marketing strategist at Hummingbird Creative Group. How are you doing today, Hannah?
I'm doing good. Happy to be here. Excited to talk to Ruby and to you.
Awesome. Well, tell me what's bringing you joy this morning.
I think all the holiday spirit. I spent last night driving around looking at Christmas lights, so I'm really inspired, and we decorated our house, so it's just a beautiful time, and it's just joyful, everything around.
It is a joyful time of year, and for the listeners, joy is my word of the year, but it's been my word of the year for like probably 5 or 8 years going now. I just think this time of the year is amazing. It's a great time to look forward and look back and just take stock of everything and how wonderful life is, and just the wonderful people around us. So today we have Ruby Garcia on with us. And fun story, a joyful story. Ruby and I met locally here in the Triangle area of North Carolina because she's based here too. And we met on a photo shoot not too long ago. And it was such a neat day that day. A local photographer, Chanel Majors, brought together a group of women on a Sunday, pretty much an all-day photo shoot, and we got to have fun. We got our hair done and our makeup done and did some branding photography, and it was just a wonderful, wonderful time. So I had the great time of meeting Ruby and then catching up with her afterwards. And so, Ruby, welcome to the show. How are you this morning?
I'm doing wonderful, and I remember that day so well because I had just had a dream, and I think I even shared this with you. I had just had a dream maybe a few nights before where there was a hummingbird and I was following this hummingbird. And so when I met you, I was like, oh, this is so crazy because hummingbird, right? Is
That's
like
awesome.
Your brand. And I thought this must be like a divine connection here set up. And so it's great to be with you here, Wendy and Hannah.
Yeah, that was such a fun day. So, Ruby, I'm going to toss the same question over to you. What's bringing you joy this morning?
I just finished a semester of grad school.
Yay.
So
It's
no
finished.
homework. Yes, I literally yesterday just finished submitting my last project. And usually I'm in school on Mondays from like 10 to 3. And there's no class today, and I get to be here with you. So I am feeling very expansive with time and freedom and just able to breathe a little. So that's what's bringing me joy today.
Well, that's fabulous. Well, I am going to ask you to please introduce yourself and talk about your world. You have an amazing story, but I think so much is changing in your world. So I want you to have the best opportunity to explain what all it is that you're doing in your world today, Ruby.
Thanks so much. So I'm a leadership coach, primarily working with Latinas and women of color, helping them to build their confidence, expand their visibility, as well as their influence. And I've been in this personal development, professional development space for about the last 10 years. Prior to that, I worked in leadership, sales leadership roles in traditional corporate America. And, I've just really enjoyed my work. My brand has evolved. I think that's one of the things that I think about when it comes to personal branding is when I first really intentionally started working on my brand over a decade ago, it was, it showed up in one way. At that time, I was in the corporate space. And so it was more about the work I was doing that. And then now, it looks very different. And it's even still in the middle of transition, as you said, like I have a lot going on. I'm studying. I'm getting my master's from UNC Chapel Hill in Master's of Educational Innovation Technology and Entrepreneurship. And I'm really interested in the AI space. And so now I'm looking at like, how do I integrate AI into leadership? How do I help women, Latinas, women of color, really upskill in this area, because AI is going to be essential for leadership, in 2024 and beyond.
Oh, that's fantastic. Yeah, AI is something that is kind of finding its way into all of our worlds and helping us be more innovative and use our own brains to think about more creative things, I think. And so I'm a big fan of all of what AI is bringing to the table. So great that you're focused on that. I want to kind of get into some questions about the hummingbird effect and kind of how you're seeing that play out. So can you share a specific instance where seemingly small change in your marketing or brand strategy led to a significant or positive outcome or results for your business?
Yes. Well, Wendy, you know that I love LinkedIn. LinkedIn is one of my favorite tools, my favorite platform.
Yes.
It's where I spend more time than pretty much anywhere else. And I would say the one, and this was really hard, I had to choose between the two, but the one thing that I think really shifted for me was live video on LinkedIn. And I will say that showing up on LinkedIn was never really an issue for me. I was a regular writer and contributor on LinkedIn, but moving to video, and especially live stream video, seemed a lot scarier. And I just got stuck of like, I don't want to do this
Right.
because showing up on video, like at heart, I feel like I'm a writer. And the reason why I love writing is because you can articulate yourself, you could edit yourself, you can say things exactly the way that you want to say them. That doesn't always come through when you're on a live stream. And that was really scary to me, not to mention just being a little self-conscious about, how I was going to show up, how I was going to look, what were the expressions that I was going to make up, on my face. And so I just was dealing with a lot of insecurities. But this was probably the biggest shift for me in terms of not just showing up, but really facing some of those fears that I had, and then actually expanding my business because of it.
That is awesome. Well, so describe kind of the initial situation when you were kind of considering doing this, and what made you kind of implement what I'm going to call an innovation, because I think like you, many, many people are intimidated by being on video, especially live video, and how you have to plan for that, or do you have to plan for that, or do you just go with it and hope for the best? So talk about kind of the situation you were in that made you go, okay, I'm going to jump in and I'm going to do this, and how you implemented that innovation.
Well, one of the reasons that I love LinkedIn, for example, is that it's a platform that makes, you can use your voice, like it democratizes accessibility and using your voice. And I wanted to leverage this platform in particular just because, so much of my audience is on LinkedIn, and I didn't want to wait to necessarily be invited to speak. I wanted to create my own platform. I wanted to create my own table, right? I wanted to build my own community. And so I thought this was a great way to do it. But again, I was really scared because I just didn't know how it would turn out. I thought I'm probably going to be, let me use the words that my kids use, I'm probably going to be so cringy at first, right? And it just really terrified me. What if I don't say the right thing? What if someone asks me something and I don't know how to respond? But again, I really believe that our fears are our limits. And, I'm of the mindset of a growth mindset and always wanting to push past those limits, because I know that there's something else for me there. And so I was working with a coach. In full transparency, I was working with a coach because I needed that extra support and encouragement. And it was the one thing I was committed to. I was committed to this breakthrough and showing up. And so I scheduled my first live stream. I did prepare. Not everyone does. I do prepare transcripts, or at least an outline. So because besides being an introvert, I'm also ADHD. So I can very rapidly run off the train tracks. And so I prepare, and it was scary, but I did it. And when I rewatched the video, which is almost always the scary part, right, is rewatching yourself back, I realized that I wasn't that bad at it. And yes, there was improvements that I could make, but I did some things really well. And it was a muscle that I just kept practicing. So probably for about at least 3 months straight, I showed up weekly on LinkedIn doing live streams. It kind of settled down when the semester started, and I had to pull back just because my classes took up so much room. But showing up on LinkedIn provided so many different opportunities. It helped me improve my communication skills. It helped me build my confidence. It helped me reach out to new people. It helped me to demonstrate my expertise, to position myself as a thought leader. So there's so many benefits, like new clients, new speaking opportunities. Like it was just, it brought me the fastest results than anything else I've done on LinkedIn over the last decade.
That's awesome. So tell me about like the implementation of that. Like what kind of planning did you need to do in order to implement that well?
Yeah. In terms of, I think one place that most people get stuck is the technology. And it's actually not too difficult. You do need a third-party provider. So you need like a Restream or StreamYard, for example, to be able to do live streams on LinkedIn. And so that was all the technology that was needed. And then it was just about preparing through, like for me, I would come up with a topic, have a transcript ready, create an invitation, invite people in my community to participate. And then it was just about doing it. So there's not really any fancy equipment. There's no secret sauce. It's just about showing up and doing the thing. And then inviting your community to interact with you. And that was the fun part. Like I loved seeing who would show up and see what questions they had, and seeing connections being made between the community. So that was something that was unexpected that I really learned to love. It really strengthened community for me.
Hey listeners, if you're enjoying the Hummingbird Effect, there's a special treat just for you. The team has put together a free downloadable resource that maps out 20 reasons why having a branding strategy is essential for your business. It's packed with valuable insights that help you understand the power of effective branding. Don't miss out. Download it now by visiting the website hummingbird-creative.com or checking the link in the show notes.
So in terms of getting the word out to that community, how do you let people know? Have you like campaigned this and called it something? Put a brand to it on LinkedIn, or how do you go about that?
So I actually didn't put a brand to it. So I used to do it. And I will say that this is kind of, again, like it's evolved as I have. So when I first started showing up on LinkedIn, I did interviews with other folks. Right. And I would just do a lot of interviewing of them. And that was great. And I called that the Latina connection because it was focused on the Latino community. And then I kind of pivoted because I wanted to showcase some of my thought leadership and put out, things that were important to me and talk about things that I had a specific perspective on based on my experiences as a coach specifically for Latina women, as a hypnotherapist, my experiences in corporate, my experiences as a small business owner, entrepreneur. So that was a big shift, right? Because I kind of feel like speaking to other people was a little bit of a crutch. The focus wasn't on me necessarily. It was much easier to have the focus on someone else, but to have myself to be in the spotlight was a little more uncomfortable. And that's even for me as someone who helps and supports others, is like, I had to face this fear, this limit that I had. And so, that was part of my evolution. And it really, like I said, it really opened up so many doors for me, and I really increased my confidence, and I started teaching other people how to do it as well. And that was even more gratifying.
That's great. As a coach, have you seen some of your the people that you've worked with on that have success as well?
Absolutely. So earlier this year in August, I actually held a 1 week visibility challenge for the Latina community. And so every single day we showed up on LinkedIn. I gave them we showed up I sent an invitation on LinkedIn, and then it was through a Zoom call, a private Zoom call. And every day I would teach LinkedIn strategies. And one of the things that I want to say about LinkedIn is, and this is my, I guess this is my thought leadership, is it's not just about the platform. LinkedIn is a metaphor for how we show up in life. And so I'm always encouraging women and Latinas and underrepresented communities, like, how much space do we want to take up? What does it look like to take up space? And we get to practice that on LinkedIn, right? And so every day during this 1 week challenge, I'd show up for about an hour and a half, teach. It was like no gatekeeping, to teach everything I know about LinkedIn and how to do it step by step. And then, the amazing part was, yes, I was giving step-by-step instructions, but the most amazing part of it was just the community that was built during that process. And I wasn't actually planning on necessarily like having anything after that, but as a result of that week, I could see how many people wanted to continue this journey. And so then I actually opened up a Latino LinkedIn incubator. And so for the last 4 months, I've been meeting with a group of women every other Friday, and we've been diving deeper into these strategies, talking about things like imposter syndrome, about like the bigger why of what we're doing, how to tell your origin story. And so that's just been absolutely amazing.
So that's one of your hummingbird effects, right? Like, you've built this community. That's not what you went into it for. You were thinking some speaking gigs, you were thinking some coaching gigs, but you've actually built this amazing community. Talk about that. I mean, talk about the measurement of the speaking and coaching, but then talk about that hummingbird effect with this bigger community and how you see that playing out down the road.
Yeah. I'll just say, in terms of, I ended up getting more client calls, leads, more people reaching out, especially during Hispanic Heritage Month, asking for me to speak at their events. I actually had to turn away events this year just because I didn't have capacity for it, which, you're kind of sad about in one way, but it also makes you feel good that people want to hear you speak. But again, community has really been one of the like biggest outcomes out of this. I think over the 5 days, and this was my first launch ever of doing something like this, and I think there were over 100 women that showed up during the 5 days. Every day there was more than 30 women showing up. To the meet. So which was pretty good, and that was all the way through the week, because usually I was told by my coach, like, on the 4th and 5th day, you're going to see it dip drastically, and that's okay. I was kind of warned ahead of it, but it stayed consistent. And what I loved about it was that it wasn't just that I built a community for us, but there was a group of job seekers who ended up creating a community within themselves to support each other, that they still, and this was back in August, and they're still meeting to this day. And so many great connections and relations. People have emailed me and been like, we met in person, and sent me a picture of them meeting because they met through the visibility challenge. And so it's definitely strengthened community. And I don't know that you can put like a number or price tag on that.
So, Ruby, tell me this. You said that you're getting really busy. Is that right? Like, you're getting a lot of speaking opportunities, you're getting coaching opportunities. And so how do you think you're going to continue to be committed to this type of like rigorous campaign structure that you've created on LinkedIn? How are you going to carve out the time? Just give some advice to listeners about how to not lose sight, even though you get busy, at how important this is to keep this going. Because community isn't something that you can kind of start and stop and start and stop. Can you talk about that a little bit?
I look at it almost as a habit now. It is something that I prioritize, just like I have a routine every morning of making my coffee and then, sitting down and, looking through LinkedIn and engaging. I just make it a priority because I've seen the difference when I've not shown up online. I do see the direct result, like the direct impact and results with my business. It's mirrored back to me. So like over the summer, I stopped doing newsletters as much. And then I noticed that my engagement started to drop off. And
Okay.
so I went back to what I knew was working. So when you find strategy, and everyone's business is different. So some might be newsletters, it might be videos. But when you find a strategy that works, double down on it and make it a priority to stay consistent. Yes, it is time consuming, but I've seen what happens when I don't follow through, and I like getting the results better. So
Absolutely.
I just made it essential. I've just built it into my calendar. And that's the hardest thing. But the more that you do it, the easier it becomes. And the faster you get to, the faster it is for me to write an outline or a transcript. And then not to mention that, because in the beginning, you're kind of building your content library or building out your thought leadership. And so it's a little more effort on the front end. But as you do that on the back end, it becomes faster because then you have things to pull from. Now, when I'm doing videos and people are asking me questions, like I know what's in their mind, so I know what I can create for them next.
Sometimes it's really hard to measure results on any of the social platforms. Like you're working on it and you're putting content out, you're seeing maybe some engagement numbers, but they're not necessarily, when you're just posting, they're not necessarily getting you where you want to go. What do you think about this strategy that Ruby's done here?
I love it. I always encourage all of our clients to be more active. I really love LinkedIn personally. There's other platforms that you can be on, but I love hearing your story of it being successful because it is scary and it's hard. It's hard to plan for because it is off the cuff, but it's also, you have to be a part of the conversation that's important to you. So I really love hearing that you dove into it and you had your hummingbird effect of you were doing this for yourself and your brand to get it larger, but you ended up creating something that you probably weren't imagining and you got new skills. Have you seen any change in your personal brand that you've kind of shifted into or leaned into more, or maybe you started doing something completely different that you never thought you'd be doing because of this community you've built?
I don't know if I've seen something completely different. I will say that one of the things that maybe I held back on previously that I realized was really important was, I always believe that you have to give value back, of course, right? It wasn't just about me showing up and trying to push my own personal brand or my business. I really wanted to be able to give value to others. And I think sometimes we resist that because we want to keep it to ourselves until we get hired. But I found that the more that you give away, the more it comes back to you. So I am, especially like with the visibility challenge, like I said, I was like, no gatekeeping. Here's everything you need to know. I'm going to walk you step by step and show you exactly how I did this. And so I think that, coming from a spirit of generosity, like generosity begets generosity. And the more that we can provide value to others, it does come back to us.
I think that's great to embrace and not hold back. It obviously increased your community a whole lot more than anybody else in your space, and you're able to get those clients and create those groups within each other. So that's awesome to hear.
Yeah. And I think the other thing is there's a real distinction between audience and community, because anyone can have a big audience, right? And that's, for an audience, I think it's more just about consuming. But with a community, it's reciprocal, right? There's a win-win. There's back and forth engagement. There's people telling you what they want, people feeling connected to you. So I think that it's not, you have to be careful because even though, yes, my numbers did go up in terms of like views or the number of people I was connected to or the number of people that subscribed to my newsletter, I never look at the numbers by themselves because unless they're actually producing a result of some sort, then it's superficial. So I really try to look at it much deeper in terms of like what's being cultivated here. And at the end of the day, it's all about the relationships.
I think it's super important that you've noticed the difference between the audiences and the communities, and it really makes you stand out because you're not just doing this to do this. You're not just doing this to get your brand off. You're doing this to make a difference and to make an impact and to help people. So do you have any advice for anyone to take that step to make those connections and to notice their communities rather than their audiences, or their customers rather than just the people that step into their stores or visit their websites?
I think one of the biggest things that you can do is tell your own story. And what I mean by that is not just your organization or company story, but your story of why you're doing the thing that you're doing. And in telling your story, it's also being vulnerable about the ups and downs that have come in your story. And I found that in that vulnerability is where real connection is made. And when people feel a connection to you, you're building that trust factor, and they want to do business with you or they want to refer you to others. And so what I would encourage other entrepreneurs or small business owners to do is to tell their stories. Like, why is it that you're doing what you do? You could do so many different things. Why is this the thing that you spend 40 plus hours a week doing?
And do you think it's helped you niche down who's reaching out to you? Like, do you feel like your community you've built is exactly the target audience that you were going for?
Absolutely. 110%.
That's
think,
awesome.
Yeah. Wendy, I don't know if you could talk more on that and just why target markets are important. And the whole point of the Hummingbird effect is getting the right people to notice you.
Yeah. Well, I think, we talk about target market all the time with our branding clients, Ruby. And many people can't quite get that nailed down. Now, I do think, you knew you wanted to go into that Latina area, but I'm sure you had some people not in that area who have engaged with you on LinkedIn, and that broadens your reach, right? But I do think it's really neat the way you're looking at it as community versus target market. And the community is becoming and is your target market. So I think that's pretty amazing. The other thing that I think this really speaks to too, Hannah, that we talk about all the time is I'm all the time asking questions to clients like, well, what does your target market like to do? Do they go on social media? Do you know what platforms they're on? What do they read? Where do they hang out? Well, Ruby's got them hanging out in her live streams. And so she's attracting those people instead of wondering where they are and trying to find them. And so I think that's a really great way to look at kind of an inbound, you've got people coming to you now who are interested in what you have to say, and they've become, a captive audience per se, and not just an audience though, right? They're very, they're interacting with you, which is even better because they get to know you and know how you work. And that way they can identify whether you're someone they want to be working with or not. And so I think you're doing so many great things with target market without necessarily having thought about it that way, but just figuring out you wanted to create community. I think there's a lot of larger companies who can't figure out how to create community as easily as you've been able to do it on LinkedIn. So I think there's some lessons here. And I think what I want to ask you about is what you feel like you have learned that you're going to take forward from here and how you're going to change the way you're doing the next thing as the result of what you've learned from your LinkedIn live streams.
Yeah. Can I say one little follow-up to that, Wendy, is I think part of it with some of these businesses that struggle with building their community is I do tend to wonder if it's because they're looking at it only from a profit standpoint or only looking at it in terms of your ideal customer profile rather than looking at it from more of a place of, I guess, empathy right? When you think design thinking, you think about empathy and putting yourself in your customer's shoes and talking with your customers, because I can say that I know my audience inside and out pretty much, right? I mean, everyone, there's nuances, right? But like, I really know what they dream about, the struggles, the barriers, the pain points, like who they aspire to be. And I think that's why it's worked so well. And in terms of, what I think I've learned about this is, I think the biggest thing is just leaning into the discomfort of doing something new. Is, getting out of my comfort zone, getting out of my own way, taking uncomfortable action because it was really uncomfortable initially. And sometimes I still get the jitters, but I show up anyways. And I just remind myself that this is, that the best thing I can do for those that I want to impact is model it. And that's taking up space, that's showing up, that's using your voice. And so I think that's the biggest thing, is just leaning in and facing your fears head on. And then those fears, they dissipate.
So that seems like a wonderful piece of advice for anyone trying to build their business, whether they're a salesperson for a corporation or whether they're an individual trying to get their business started, or even trying to figure out the next way to go to market as technology is changing. Talk about innovation. You said you're focused on AI. Let's just have a quick conversation about innovation and how you see innovation coming to play for your future.
Oh, wow. I have so many ideas. This is so big, right? I mean, there's like possible apps. There's, like metaverses where I'm thinking like people can actually practice their public speaking skills and get feedback virtually. I think there's so many opportunities. I don't know where I'm going to narrow in my focus, because right now I'm just trying to, learn as much as I can. And it is a new space for me. I'm not, previous to this season in my life, I would say that I was a non-techie. I don't know how to work more than 2 remotes in my house. If I can't, I have to ask my kids like, hey, how do I get onto regular cable or whatever? So it's all new, but I think AI, like I said, it's going to be an essential skill for any leader. And so I think it's important for women, for underrepresented communities to be involved and to engage with it, because there's just so much going on. It's growing, developing, changing every day. And so we need diverse perspectives helping to shape it. I think I'm excited to see how it plays out in marketing. It's helped me with my own marketing and being able to, brainstorm or generate ideas faster, or proofread things that I write to make sure that it's sounding the way that I want it to sound, that it sounds like me. But even with AI, one of the skills that's still most essential that's not going to change is communication skills, which is also why I love video, because when you're practicing video, you're practicing your communication. And we need that more than ever with AI.
We can agree with that, can't we, Anna? Yeah. Communication is key to everything, and it sounds like you have found the perfect communication tool for you, Ruby. So thank you so much for sharing that. Is there anything else you'd like to talk about here as we go towards the end of the podcast today?
I would just say, I know a lot of people talk about LinkedIn. They talk about optimizing their profile, but to really get the most out of LinkedIn, it's really about leveraging the different tools, leveraging things like LinkedIn video. I didn't even touch on newsletters. I love newsletters too. They're another way that I've grown my community. And, I have over half my subscribers are not even first degree connections, which means that I'm getting a lot, like expanding my reach. And, these people willingly subscribe to my newsletter. And so that means that, I get to make more impact by sharing information that way. So what I would say is, leverage all the tools, because I can tell you that your competitors are not doing that, right? LinkedIn, it has, in terms of their demographics in their base. You're talking about people that are, 4 out of 5 are decision makers. There's double the buying power. So it is a great place to, meet other people, build those relationships, and find new opportunities.
Thank you so much for sharing those statistics too. Anna, any more thoughts?
I don't. This was really wonderful to hear. I'm so glad to have this conversation about your videos and just how what really stood out to me was how much you weren't going into this to really achieve anything but to prove something to yourself. And what came out of it was something much larger and much more useful to your business and your brand. And you didn't do this money-driven tactic. You really went in with an open mind to what would happen. And it had a really great outcome for you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Ruby. Thanks so much for your insights and sharing your stories this morning. We really appreciate you coming on and talking about the hummingbird effect. Would you like to share your contact information with listeners?
Well, of course, you can find me on LinkedIn. It's probably the number one place that you can find me. And you can also check out my website at rubygarcia.com.
Awesome. Thank you so much for giving us your time and your insights this morning. We really appreciate it, Ruby. And I want to thank all the listeners to this episode, and go out and find your hummingbird effect now. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to The Hummingbird Effect with Wendy Coulter. We hope you found this episode valuable. Please be sure to rate and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. To learn more or to work with Wendy and her team, go to hummingbird-creative.com.